today to announce that the Justice Department has secured felony guilty pleas from the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance.
Actually, it's Binance.
Binance.
Binance. Largest virtual.
Binance.
Binance. And let me be clear. It's Binance.
Binance.
Binance. Council has discussed crypto regulations and legislations at length, and we have come to the conclusion that instead of regulating, we are going to ape a fat bag each into laptop and pump it to over $1,300,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 market cap. Let's fucking go, crackheads.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Crypto Morning Coffee. I got my coffee locked and loaded, ready to go, because on this beautiful Friday, we have to talk about the big, beautiful retest and many other news that are coming. You can hear it already. The stimulus package is ready to go, and we are going to look at what is happening at the moment and driving Bitcoin and why it's going to 135,000 very, very soon, and maybe beyond that in this cycle in the next couple of weeks and months to come. And we are also going to look at the altcoins and our altcoin spotlight. So we are going to look at Vchain, we're going to look at MK, we're looking at Ecomi and Vivi as always. So make sure to stay tuned all the way through. Okay, good morning to each and every one of you, and I want to introduce again this flag pattern right now, because yesterday we basically monitored the breakout and that we closed above this key trend line, and now we see we are a little bit red on Bitcoin, which is absolutely normal, absolutely expected. This might be the retest in the making, and maybe because we are on Friday, maybe this retest is going on for the entire weekend, right? So we could see 3 candles here to the downside, touching on 108,400 or so, right? 108,400, 300, something like that. And then go from there in the next week. As usually, we don't want to really see big fat pumps on the weekend, because then CME gap opens, the price comes back to close the CME gap. So stuff like that we don't want to see. We want to see a nice and perfect retest on top of this. What we also don't want to see, and where I would say we still want to have the retest happening as confirmation, is that we don't want to see this going red back into this flag, right? And that is something where we might have some kind of PTBS from a couple of months ago, because if you look at, I remember this, if you look at the situation here, we kind of did have this. See that here, for example, here and here. So we had these situations where we broke up and then we faked out and we came back in, and then we continued for so long more, and then we faked out another one, and it was only a week, right? So we really want to have the situation where we go like this and have our perfect retest on top of it, and then then we are out of the woods, and then we're going to our flag target all the way to 135,000, which we would see here from this breakout. But we first need to confirm this breakout, right? So that is crucial. The confirmation is in the making right now, and yeah, as I said, it could take a little while. Now, how are you feeling now? It's a Freaky Friday, so guys, make sure to smash up the like button. Are you feeling bullish on this breakout? Let's see. We have Green Lantern here, my fellow rare hodler. GM boys, pumped iron, now pumped this fraggin' BTC Freaky PH Friday, like that. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And also good to see you, Trucking Hank here. Good morning to you, Jonas. Good morning, Sven. How are you doing, GM? It is a really, really, really nice time to be alive, right? I mean, what the heck is happening? Bitcoin is sitting at 110,000. Retail doesn't care, and we are about to see much, much more to the upside here to come. What's the retest area? I would say, depending whether it's today or tomorrow, but it's between 108,500. That would be for today. For tomorrow, 108,410, and then 108,300-ish, 270, something like that. Why? Because we have this downward sloping overhead resistance, right? So depending on how long it takes, that retest area goes a little bit lower, but it's not much more, right? And once we see that retest and get him bought up, we have our confirmation, then I think it's go time, right? And in an ideal world, we are retesting for today. We are closing, for example, at this level at 109,000, and then on Saturday we go a couple of hundred lower, and then on Sunday we hit that line and we start to get a wick on that to the downside, right? That's what I would imagine as a perfect retest here for Bitcoin. Now, what's going on in the world? Well, yesterday we covered it still as open topic. Now it's closed. The House narrowly passes Trump's mega bill in major victory for Republicans. As after the Senate, I think that's the order. And so the House passed the massive tax and spending bill. That's what it is, right? Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries broke records with a nearly 9-hour speech decrying the bill on the chamber floor before the final vote. 9-hour speech, can you imagine that? I've never done a stream, I think, longer than 2 hours, and that's already exhausting. So a 9-hour speech, I can't imagine that. And also, can that be like, can that content be really, is that full of content, or how is that? I don't know. The legislation stalled overnight as a handful of holdouts demanded concessions from the White House before they agreed to move the bill forward. House Speaker Mike Johnson spent all night trying to unify his conference. Interesting. So it seems to be that it got not so smooth, but the final vote was 218 to 214, with two Republicans, Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Pennsylvania's Brian Fitzpatrick, voting against it alongside all of the chamber's Democrats. Interesting, right? So two people really against it, and wow, maybe they go into history with that. Who knows, right? But it still went through, so it doesn't matter. That is a huge debt package, so to say, on top of the debt clock, leading to a 40 trillion debt right now for the US. Then when this is spending is going out, if it stays within the 3 trillion that it was announced to be. So there's a one big beautiful bill, contains trillions of dollars in tax cuts, and that is, tax cuts is almost instant stimulus. As this, I think, I don't know how it's in the US, but right now that basically the tax season. So it's, if it takes effect right now, then it's instant stimulus. Beefed up immigration enforcement spending, and it's also by significant cuts to Medicaid and other programs. So interesting, right? So, but tax cuts. The question is, what I don't see is where investments and industry stimulus is going to. I don't see it here right now. Do we have any more on the content? I don't care who says what here. It's just about the what is in the bill. Here we have it. They warn disproportionate benefit the wealthy while throwing millions of low-income Americans off their health insurance. Okay. Yeah, we don't really see any more in this article. Sorry to disappoint, but maybe we will find out along the way where all that money goes. It can't be only tax cuts, right? Sven says, I still have the feeling BTC pump will wait until Christmas. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know. Let's come to that here right now. Actually, let's discuss this right now. Because we have our global M2 story, right? And you see the close correlation, not in the short term, but usually over 30 to 60 days, it gets highly correlated. So we see we have a little bit of wiggling around here for Bitcoin, which is our flag, right? This is our flag pattern. And I think it's mostly over. And the direction that M2 designs for us is clear. It just formed a new all-time high. According to this chart, we're going to 170,000. However, that is depending on the chart, because I think here I have another one, right? So here you see the trajectory is the same. It depends a little bit on how people pull the data. This one shows to 150,000 roughly. So let's not fix this number directly in our head, but the direction, right? And what we see here is we should get a bigger pump out of Bitcoin fairly soon, as this is a very steep incline here on the M2. And also in this chart, we see this very steep incline on the M2 going beyond 120K. So if we were to continue our close correlation with global M2, we should see that pump coming in very, very soon, going to all-time highs within the next month, right? So somewhere between now and August, we should go to new all-time highs, right? And no matter how long it takes, but the direction here is clear, and we do not see any major decoupling. And as long as global M2 is forming new all-time highs, and we say that global M2 roughly has a 3 months lead, then this would put us year to date, or let's say for that quarter then upcoming, to the 4th of October, where we basically say, okay, we're definitely going to be in a bull run until then, plus X what is coming up here in new all-time highs from global money supply going upwards, right? And the big beautiful bill is definitely showing us that in general these conditions are easing. If there is tax easing, if there is industry stimulus and so on in the biggest market, biggest contributor to the volume in crypto, which is the US market, then I think that is extremely bullish outset right now for the market here. Yeah. What still isn't going to drive it is the Fed. So we have the next Fed meeting in 26 days, and that is 30th of July, end of July. And the projection right now is that very likely there's not going to be a cut again. 5.2% only chance of getting a cut in July. And then, so this has decreased. Before it was like 20% or so. And then we have, at the moment, an almost certainty of almost 70% total that there's going to be at least a 25-point cut in September. If that was going to happen, I think it would boost and fire up the whole market. And we would see the stock market and everything probably reacting positive to these cuts, as many feel that Powell and the Fed are waiting way too long for these cuts. So, and then we see that basically only for October, the watch tool only sees a 10% chance of staying at the same rate still, and then equally almost 50% for either coming down 25 basis points by then, or even 25 50 basis points. But this, it depends, right? It depends on the outcome of September, because if we lower September already, then these will change, right? So, but from the point right now, that is the projection. So we are, together with having this global M2 raging, we are also looking at potentially somewhere at this on this path, easing the financial conditions there in the US by lowering the interest rates. So interesting projection, interesting trajectory here, and on average, I'd say the 130 to 150,000 area is at the moment very likely go to for the Bitcoin price in the next 3 months. Yeah. I mean, you see it also here. No one believed it after this flag. We did get our pump all the way up to a new all-time high, and then our flag pattern, right? So 110, 111,000-ish here the range, and we are going to blast through it probably. This is bullish for everything, altcoins as much as Bitcoin, and yeah, I think it will come. So what we do see at the moment is that already the stock market has just hit a 78 on the Fear and Greed index. We see how a year ago we were basically on neutral. No, you don't see it. 1 second. Here we go. So we do see it here. We have been on neutral. Then a month ago we entered into the greed, and then the greed increases, and now we are in extreme greed basically. So this is now, and it comes along with where is it? The S&P 500 breaking out new all-time highs right now as we speak. Yeah, see it here. We have covered the breakout here, and like even when it was not breaking out yet, we've covered it here on the channel. So, and this ties all together, right? Yesterday I showed you the gold parabola is broken, but we're still around all-time highs. So the risk off is maybe off, meaning risk on is going, right? We see it now in the S&P 500. That people go to a little bit more risky. We see it in the NASDAQ. Here you have the same setup. Resistance, resistance, resistance. Bam, breakthrough. NASDAQ maybe retest at some point. I don't know. Here we see a wick. On the S&P 500, not really. So S&P 500 is really firing away. I mean, look at that. These are the weekly candles. What is that? That's a 5.5% pump within 2 weeks for the S&P 500. That's quite big, right? Not to say that they're like it's still going, right? So for this week, so we don't know how it ends up in the end, but somewhere there and thereabout. So this is super interesting. Coming back, so that is in greed. What's interesting as well is this. I saw this morning. A mega whale wallet has just woken up. A dormant address containing 10,000 Bitcoin, 1 billion USD has been activated after 14.3 years, which was only $7,500 roughly back then. So if that's someone who just found their keys, imagine that. Like, imagine you're like, oh, I remember I had some. I mean, putting 7,500 USD in 2011 is nuts as well. But what the heck? I mean, yeah. And someone commented correctly. They finally found the seed phrase, or we are all in trouble. And that's correct, because if someone was able to hack or crack into that would mean we are all in trouble. But I'd rather say someone was able to open a long dormant wallet by finding their seed phrase or whatever, activated that on whatever, on a ledger or I don't know where, on a cold wallet, accessed the Bitcoin, right? So that address, we don't know exactly what it did, I think, but whoever it is, congratulations, right? I mean, that's nuts. Imagine after 14.3 years, you just find the billion again. which was $7,000 before. That's crazy. Okay, Bitcoin power of law. Quick look. We are still in the, let's say, we are below the linear regression fit, which is something we always stick to. How can I maneuver on this, by the way? Here. There we go. There we go. So, yeah, so here we see it, right? We have had major resistance here, here, and here on the linear regression fit. And right now, that fit, just touching that resistance again, would be 120,000. If it would be the first bull market without coming over it significantly, if we were to not pass it, right? I think that we are going back to that regression band very quickly based on the M2. And then we are going to see this exaggeration above it, like here. If that was the case, then we have a way larger bull market in front of us than my target is, and that everything else shows, right? Because the upper band today is 440,000. If we were going half, we are still at 200,000 only here. The longer this takes, the closer that comes. Or you just wait for 2027 and then 200,000 is your linear regression fit, right? So it's, I don't know. I have the feeling that we underestimate this bull market still. And I have a feeling that the 4-year cycle is kind of wrecked. And that financial conditions will tell us when and how and where. And that we might get another printed exuberant bull run, right? So, yeah. Or you say this time is different and we don't come over this linear regression fit anymore and power of law is basically wrecked. Where the bull market bottom or the bear market bottom is slowly creeping up from 40-something thousand, would be then by the end of the year already at 50,000 and goes to 70,000 by 2027, which I said also on the stream I'd see as the absolute minimum, like the lowest price, 70,000 in a bear market, right? That all makes sense. And if we calculate that we have usually 60, 70, 80% corrections, you would say, okay, you come up to, let's say, 200K this cycle, and then you correct 60, 70%. Yeah, that makes sense with the 70,000, right? Target. Okay, another one, quick look that we didn't look a long time at is the MVRVZ score. We do see that we are at 2.5 roughly, not even. And in the last cycle, the MVRVZ score did hit at the top a factor of 7, which was lower than usually. Usually it goes up to 10, yeah, as we see here. Okay, if we say that's diminishing, still 2 is very low compared to the 7 before. So I'd rather like to see a massive spike in the MVRVZ score to call the top, right? So also that is aligning. Now let's hear some voices out of the crypto market together. We have Tom Lee here, so let's listen a little bit to Tom Lee, the man with the second most beautiful hair after David Yu. Okay, let's go.
Some big news. It's kind of complicated, but probably suffice to say that you all are doing basically what MicroStrategy did with Ether. You're going to make Ether, the purchases that you buy through this, you're going to set this whole thing up like this. You want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, glad to. You know, I'm still a big fan of Bitcoin because I think it is, you know, digital gold. But what we've seen in the last really in 2025 is the financial services industry and crypto are converging. And it really started with stablecoins, which is the ChatGPT of crypto, right? Because it's viral adoption by consumers, businesses, banks, and now even Visa. Underneath the stablecoin industry is Ethereum. That is really like the backbone and architecture of stablecoins.
And this is super important, right? Yesterday we talked about how Ethereum is not that, and Ethereum is going to go crazy still, and many people don't count on it. Here we have it again, right? So he also says the financial industry is on Ethereum, and the institutions, they are betting on Ethereum.
So it's important to create a project that essentially accumulates Ethereum to essentially protect and have some influence on the network. So that's why we're creating this treasury vehicle to buy Ethereum. The more Ethereum that's accumulated, the more secure the network is. And I think it's also sort of the architecture that future banks will have. You know, when Goldman issues a stablecoin and JP Morgan doing it on Ethereum, as a layer one blockchain, they're going to want to secure it by staking Ethereum. So we're trying to get in front of that by creating a treasury vehicle.
And just so I understand, it's safer if you own more of it. Explain why that would be.
Well,
and before he answers that, but he says they're trying to go before that happens, creating a treasury. And yesterday we did see like this whale wallet upload of like all-time high of inflows of Ethereum into whale wallets. And I said, Ethereum is front-running, or these whales are front-running the space, right? So they're front-running retail on Ethereum right now. So everyone gets caught off guard, right? I think that's what's happening, and he confirms that basically.
Ethereum is a proof of stake network.
Right.
So unlike Bitcoin, which is proof of work, and miners do all the work for you, and that's why you have decentralized trust. In Ethereum, it's important for these entities to essentially validate transactions. So by becoming a staking entity, you're sort of securing the fidelity of stablecoins. So you don't want a stablecoin like USDC or USDT to be on a blockchain that's outside the purview of the U.S. And so I think Ethereum is a high quality, the second largest blockchain network, and it's over 51% of stablecoins, and
right.
30% of all fees on Ethereum are actually stablecoin revenue.
So that basically means by owning and staking Ethereum, you have an investment vehicle where you invest in the stablecoin economy, and you can actually benefit by the stablecoin economy. This is what he says, and this is very interesting to me.
Have the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, talking about how stablecoins could be very positive. He likes them, likes to see what's there. But you're basically saying with this, and we've also seen what happened with Circle, the stablecoin issuer,
yes.
Huge run-up after their IPO. So you're basically saying that this is the new Bitcoin, you're getting in at a very early stage?
Correct. That's right. Because let's say stablecoins, which is $250 billion today, gets to Treasury Secretary Bessent's reasonable $2 trillion. That's a 10 times increase in size. By the way, already stablecoins are the 12th largest holder of treasuries. They'll become the number one holder by then. U.S. dollar dominance is 27% in GDP terms. It's 57% of central bank reserves. It's 80% of financial trading transactions. It's 100% of stablecoin denomination. So by getting to $2 trillion, you're ensuring dollar dominance. This is very good for the U.S., but $2 trillion of stablecoins is a lot of network fees for Ethereum.
Yeah, and it's if we are, he says we are at 250 billion today. That's an 8x on that economy, which not necessarily results in 8x exact price, but maybe it is, and then that's crazy, right? That is like, what is that, 20,000 per Ethereum, and that economy growth, I can see that, and the logic, what he says makes sense to me. So I would say let's not write Ethereum off, and if we see a massive boost, front run, whatever on Ethereum, I think that's what is going to spark altcoin season, because then people will come outside, the narrative will spiral out from Ethereum to, and Chainlink is doing financial industry, whatever, RWA, right? And I'll show you something regarding VChain, and then it goes to XRP, and then it goes to many others. So the narrative will hit one after the other, but first it needs to really come to everyone on Ethereum.
So Bitmine Immersion, what you're doing is a $250 million private placement, which is all going to be put into
Yes.
Ether?
That's right. We created a carefully curated list of investors to bet on this. If you look at the press release, it is the blue chip, both in the financial world and in the crypto world. We have
Founders Fund, Kraken, Galaxy Digital.
Yep, Pantera. Yeah, so these are in the crypto world, and these are like sort of
These are the usual suspects in the crypto world, especially Pantera Capital, right? So they are all going to bet on this.
the blue chip crypto entities, and of course, Founders Fund is legendary in the traditional financial world.
And how do you measure this? It's just based on exactly how Ethereum is trading?
Well, yeah, the strategy of the company is going to be based on how much Ethereum is held per share.
Okay.
And as of today, it's $4. And the company, as we explained in the press release, can increase its holdings of ETH by, getting yield from Ethereum, doing financing transactions at a premium to their holdings, and of course, if Ethereum goes up. So I think there's three ways that value per ETH actually grows.
Okay, so there we go. This was the first. Quick at the chat, because Sven. So Sven says my bank is going to do crypto on his platform in 6 months. KBC, Belgium biggest bank. Yeah, that's crazy. And also we see it like Germany also has banks that are going crypto right now. So they all are basically forced into the space, because it's either they become obsolete by that and disrupted, or they adopt this now and offer this as a service. So it's basically there's no way around crypto. Either you do it or you die, right? It's like companies not going on the internet. Have you ever met a company that doesn't have at least a website or a Google business presence? There's no way around it, right? Regarding VChain does nodes now. If you own 10,000 or plus, I do not get how it works. Yeah, before VChain had, so they have the proof of authority mechanism with 101 authority nodes, basically, where you have to have a lot of VChain to have that. But then they had still pretty expensive nodes like Mjolnir node and stuff like that. And I think they revamped it so that having nodes is more affordable. And now basically 10,000 or whatever VChain, you can already basically become a node, right? We will look at that still once it's time. So I also had here the SEC chair Paul Atkins, also regarding tokenization. So let's listen here as well.
Tokenization is an innovation, and we at the SEC should be focused on how do we advance innovation in the marketplace. And so I would argue here over the last several years, the SEC has been standing athwart efforts to innovate in the marketplace because things have been unclear. The rules have not been clear. We've had regulation through enforcement. That day is over. We are now, my whole goal is to make things transparent, from the regulatory aspect, and give people a firm foundation upon which to innovate and to come out with new products, and so that they know what they're doing.
I think there are two things to think about, Andrew, and that's tokenization of U.S. stocks, which is one thing which could drive a lot of cost savings for all parties
I'm not against tokenization. I'm saying
settlement times would be reduced.
I'm talking about if you wanted to tokenizing SpaceX, which is a private
company. And then there's also an access to private credit, I think you were mentioning, which is a complete individual investor access to private credit, which is also another sort of tricky area, in that this is also, as you mentioned, it's not as much liquidity. Valuations are very difficult, particularly I would imagine for an individual investor. I mean, there are a lot of things here that are new frontiers for investors. Where do you stand on that?
Well, two questions. So as far as tokenization and other innovations in the marketplace to make trading and holding securities easier and with quick settlement, my predecessor pushed for what we call T+1, meaning settlement and clearance the day after the trade, the trading day. And so tokenization and other aspects of doing that tokenization in the marketplace is yet the next step to have much more efficiency in the marketplace and certainty of having a trade.
So I think that this is very different for what we heard from Gensler, right? Also, he's saying in the beginning, hey, basically he said we fucked up. We didn't give clear regulation, and now we see much more openness for the topic of tokenization, but in general for crypto, right? And yeah, I think that is very, very, very positive, because now companies know that they can just build in the crypto space, and they're not getting pursued by that or for that, right? So I would say and maybe I take this already in here as we're talking about tokenization and RWA, we do see this is the RWA space with per interactions, and we see that Chainlink is leading that, 2.5 million engagements, and then the second biggest is Vchain with 1.8 million engagements, and then we have all these HBAR and AVAX and Injective and so on around it. But we cannot write off projects that have this type, like this massive engagements, right? So I think Vchain is very well positioned for a run where eventually this narrative hits, and we do see that with the stablecoin topic, but also with tokenization of stocks and so on. In general, the tokenized assets, they become a very important part of this time, of this bull run, I would say. So I myself feel with my Vchain bag, full transparency, I have some Vchain. I feel well positioned. I also have Chainlink, so these two I have. These all I do not have, right? So I do have these two. So that's what I feel here. So I wanted to bring that up already at this point. We also had this. The SEC may streamline crypto ETF listings with automated approval process. Under the new proposal, issuers could bypass the lengthy 19B-4 application and list within 75 days. If that's true, that would even fire up more the altcoin space. That is interesting. And then we have the Marathon CEO also confirming the sheer amount of institutions that are going in. So Marathon, one of the biggest mining companies ever in the Bitcoin space. So let's listen to this guy, to Fred Thiel also.
We help energy companies take excess energy and turn it into profits.
What's going to lead you to profitability?
Well, a combination of things. One is obviously the Bitcoin that we hold on the balance sheet is constantly marked to market, but more importantly, as Bitcoin continues to be accumulated by institutions, you mentioned it in your kind of preamble as you're talking about, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF having garnered bigger fees than the S&P 500 fund. There's a huge amount of institutional interest in Bitcoin. There are a number of Bitcoin treasury companies springing up every day, and you're seeing an accumulation of Bitcoin, which is driving the price up. We're almost at record highs again. And as that continues to move upwards, It helps us generate considerable margins. The thing with our business, similar to the AI business, and I think you're going to find this if you look at any AI company that operates large data centers, is there's a huge CapEx investment up front in building these sites, and the profitability comes over time once the equipment has been depreciated. We depreciate our equipment over 3 years, and unlike our peers, we have the ability mining off of flare gas. We're able to essentially move our ASICs that have been depreciated to these low-cost marginal cost energy sites, and that drives much higher profitability and also better capital utilization.
Okay, so again, the topic of energy conversion, he says it also in the beginning, which I find super interesting, right? Excess energy into Bitcoin network is something that is usually not factored in. So when we're looking at M2, that is one thing, but profitable. So excess energy means basically energy that you would lose anyway. So that's very profitable then for miners to use. Let's take solar energy, and then you have an excess consumption for a community. Sorry, not excess consumption. Under consumption of a community, for example, a village, small city. It's interesting to see, okay, if you have X amount surplus, which you would just lose, now you can run it into Bitcoin mining and actually make money off it. So basically you can store energy on the Bitcoin network, because then you can use the Bitcoin to buy energy when you're in a deficit, right? That is what some companies are doing. For this, it's good to see institutional interest in Bitcoin. We're seeing that accumulation of Bitcoin is happening at a record level. So I think that there's still manipulation in the market, but eventually it will hit the Bitcoin price, right? So let's see when that is exactly happening. Now, quick thing here, Sven also had the question, what is a node? So I'm trying to explain that or say it in my own words, right? But I mean, you can look up the definition of that then on ChatGPT. But if you run a node, for example, on the Bitcoin network, you're basically contributing to the network, helping to validate, yeah? So to put in basically computing power to validate. Therefore, you're eligible to fees. And depending on what it is, so for example, if it's proof of work or proof of stake, depending on that, you have different setups of how you contribute to the network, right? But you're then eligible, for example, to network fees. In that case, on VChain, if you contribute to the network, you are eligible to get paid a share of those transaction costs, which is VTHO. So a part of VTHO is destroyed, and another part is awarded to the node, right? So every network needs validators in some shape or form to validate the information that is going on the chain, and to process transactions and so on. So then you're eligible for transaction fees. I hope that makes sense. And please also correct me if I'm wrong on that. But basically, for VChain on proof of authority, the authority nodes are basically doing that work. But not everyone can be an authority node, so there's also a minimum staking amount of tokens behind that. And then you are eligible to get a share of X of the VTHO that is being used for making transactions or writing on the chain. For Ethereum, it's staking Ethereum, and for Bitcoin, it's basically running basically energy, running computing power and give that to the Bitcoin network. Okay, now that we have discussed this, we are looking at the market on the day, and right now, here on the day, we see a little bit of red. Bitcoin is red, altcoins is red, nothing out of the ordinary. But if we look at the week, we have some nice movers on the week. Pengu 70%, Fartcoin 20%, Bonk 26%. We have Jupiter 13%, Vchain 5%, Celestia 10%, IMX 10%. So really nice moves on the week. Nothing too crazy. Important here to note is this is healthy, because it shows that whenever something is positively happening for Bitcoin, the coins in the top 100 are moving nicely with it. Some have breakouts like Pengu. We did look at the chart. We can look at it again. Pengu had a nice move here. I just want to go to USDT chart here for Pengu. USDT. There we go. So we see Pengu, nice move, higher highs, higher lows, potentially higher high coming in here. So basically I'd say Pengu is going to an uptrend, right? Nice 75% move. There can be, of course, a corrective move coming in here. So chasing green candles is always a thing. But we see that is developing nicely. Yesterday we've also discussed a little bit the basis for altcoins. Now Vchain, also getting a USDT chart here for VET. There we go. Bouncing off of that major support that we definitely do not want to lose. We have a lot of confluence here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touch points, or maybe even more if you want to consider this. Now we are hoping to curve out here and to scale to come up with the entire crypto market, right? That is a possible move for Vchain, hopefully. The news for Vchain are good. Revamping of the tokenomics, of the staking, hopefully getting more TVL through that. So that is Vchain. MCATE, MetaCATE, still in the accumulation phase. A little bit more green. We did have a move out of MCATE here of roughly 30%. It doesn't look like it, but that's actually a 30% move, this candle here. Yeah, so MCATE looking good. We can still drop lower here for MCATE. Also indicators are allowing that, so we can still drop a little bit lower here into this accumulation zone before we come up once again to test the upper band of that big accumulation zone. So in my opinion, all of that is accumulation, yeah. And at some point we will break out and fire up with an altcoin season here also for MCATE. In my opinion, Ecomi close to the cycle lows, clinging on for dear life. Nothing much has changed. Volume is still way higher than it was before at this point, which is good. Momentum downside, so we could see new cycle lows here if we were to lose this support for good. You could argue we already lost it, but let's see, right? For now we are clinging on. Maybe it needs to take another step lower before the turnaround is coming in, but I think it will. Depends on the overall market, but right now all eyes on Bitcoin, as I said before. No altcoin season yet in sight. Where is my Bitcoin dominance? Oh, there it is. As we do see that Bitcoin dominance is still sitting at 65.33, we still are not sure if we are going to continue to go up from here. It's definitely in the realm of possibilities. We do expect Bitcoin dominance to top out eventually within this green circle somewhere, which is fairly big. But we could see Bitcoin dominance to go to 70%, and that would wreck altcoins continuously against Bitcoin until it does not, right? Dollar, okay-ish, has been bought up a little bit, so still low. The overall trajectory is clear. It's going to the downside. Let's see how long, how far. we did have the unemployment rate coming in stronger as expected, 4.1 instead of 4.3 as we see here. Just that as a side note. But back to the altcoins, and maybe let's get into some Q&A. And while we do that, I'm gonna pull up some VV stuff. Actually, let me go full screen here quickly. VV, there we go. Let's pull up some VV numbers here. So after the Lisbon event, actually that's enough to go like this so you can see the chart. So we're hitting 11.5 million collectibles. After the VV event in June here, we have a lot of sideways movement of new wallets, right? So the event helped to push a little bit to the upside, but here we see since 1 month, or within 1 month, VV only gained about 37 new users, which is not that much. And we see it's like wiggling around here a little bit and coming up again with some drops. And then, the trend is up. We have from May 5th to now, we do have 212 new users, which is quite okay-ish, I would say, because it still is in the 100 per month or so. If those are continuously active, would be even better, right? But it's an uptrend still in the user wallets. Not much, but it is. So we will see when the next marketing push is coming out. But I'd say the more the financial conditions are loosening, the better it is. Let's get also to the VV channel quickly and see what's new. We do have comic sets, don't forget about that, which is actually interesting, right? For collecting MCPs, we actually want to see more MCP action. A lot of community action, but so we're expecting a big announcement still within the next days. So I'm curious what that is. It's supposed to be fairly big, but not too much in the last days. So yesterday we have already seen most of that. So I'm curious what that is going to be. Now, guys, with that said, we're already out of time. So I'll let you go here. So make sure to smash up the like button, subscribe to the channel, notifications on. Enjoy your weekends. I think we are going to have a really, really great time coming up in the next 3 months. So it's going to be really amazing. So wherever you are on the world, have yourselves a great morning, evening, day, night, or afternoon. And I catch you in the next video or live stream. Have a good one, everyone, and bye.